Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to Devlog 3 for the Vaporwave, which still is an action 3D platformer with stylings based off the 80s and 90s. Sounding like a bit of a broken record here, but what are you gonna do for a series? Anyway, today we will be talking to the oofity to learn more about the game's. Who the heck's that guy? Oh, Jesus! Weapons. We'll be talking about weapons.
Oh, hi there. Got me in the middle of working. Even after getting totally obliterated, the call of the grind must be answered. So my atoms had to crawl right back together just so I can start working on the brain for enemies. But that's for a later date. Today is about weapons. I'm oofity, by the way, the lead programmer of the team. Did you know that games require programming? It's quite the crazy concept, but it's true. And let me tell you, a lot of people wish it was not true. But not me, though. I love programming. At least when my code works. But because of that, I try and make systems and workflows which makes my fellow team members not want to lose their mind whenever they're working with code. Speaking of workflows, as mentioned before, we're talking about weapons today. So how about we get in and start breaking things down on how we make weapons to begin with. Our first step is weapon concepting. Of course, to make a weapon, we need to know what kind of weapon we're making to begin with. So that's why we have a concepting phase. This includes things such as the art along with the basic idea of the behavior. As this is a platformer game, we wanted to fulfill 2 rules for each one of our weaponry. Number 1, each weapon should be able to kill enemies. Revolutionary idea, I know. Number 2, though, is each weapon should have its own unique movement tech attached to it. This allows the weapons to be much more in tune with the idea of a platformer, along with giving the player ways to skillfully move around the levels. Up next is technically 2 steps, functionality and modeling. The reason why they're grouped together is because these tasks are usually done around the same time. The modeling side is covered by our artist, while the functionality side is covered by whoever's making the weapon itself. I won't go into modeling as our artist had already covered that in our last devlog, go check that out if you haven't already. I will briefly go over the functionality of weapons, however. This includes the behaviors of the weapons themselves, when the player can use them, and whether they have a cooldown or not. Can't let the player throw a billion grenades in 1 second, you know? During this phase, we'll likely be using a lot of placeholders, just so we can get a feel of how the weapon should function and how it should behave before we go any further with the process. After making the functionality and the models for our weapons, we move on to the next step, projectiles. Here we replace the stinky old placeholders which just showed how our weapon could function with projectiles that actually work with our weapon. This is especially important for weapons where their behavior is attached to the projectile, like the frisbee, where it must return back for it to be used once more. It also is important for just giving custom behaviors to each weapon that isn't just a go forward kill thing that you hit. After we have a beautiful projectile to pelt enemies with, we can finally move on to the next step, animations, where we can make things even more beautiful. What's the point of doing anything if you don't have that nice little recoil, that little feedback that you did do it, that you really committed something, you really committed that murder, you know? This step is pretty straightforward. The weapon's practically done by this point, and so all that's needed is just proper animations to line up and make sure everything looks good and feels good. Once our weapons are basically completed, the only issue now is, how do we get them? Simple. Pickups, which is the next step. Which is quite a fast step, as all we need to do is just create a weapon pickup, make sure it looks right and gives the right weapon, and voila! An easy to pick up murder machine. And finally, of course, we need to test it. And the easiest way is we just pass around the project, mess around with it, and then just see, hey, does this feel good? Am I having fun with this? The answer is no, we just tweak it a little bit, and just see how much tweaking is required until we're actually enjoying it. Then we toss it off to some poor playtester, see what they think, and then take those thoughts too. Quite a simple system if you ask me. And with that, the boring part of the video is over. You can finally get over and see what we've actually been making behind the scenes. However, I won't be the one showing that. For now, I return to my cave enshrouded in darkness, the only light coming from my screen. I'll be programming up to the AMs as per usual, as any good programmer should. Anything less and that's heresy. Toodaloo!
Thanks for that, Oofity. Alrighty, the first weapon we'll be talking about today is the Bubble Boiler. It is a ranged option that follows where you're aiming and overheats while you use it to prevent you from spamming it forever. And while you're on the ground, it does provide some knockback, so you can use it to speed yourself up while you're running, get more velocity quickly. And aerial-wise, it is designed to be useful as a jump extender, not a make you fly upward kind of deal. So kind of like a little bit like Flood from Mario Sunshine. And yeah, it doesn't do that much damage. And here we'll show off ideally how useful it is to be able to sort of slow down your vertical velocity in the air and be able to utilize the control of your character more. And the second thing we're talking about today is the Frisbee, which doesn't aim where your camera's looking, instead aims where your character is facing. You can use it to jump, so I would describe it as the most powerful and reliable vertical height gaining option. And it also, we're showing off how it goes in multiple directions based off player. It can home into enemies based off a radius, and it'll home into the first one it finds, basically. So as you can see, it went to that guy on the left, then it goes to that guy on the right, because they're the first two, and only then does it go to the guy in the middle. And you can sort of recall it while you're in the air to get the bounce earlier and more reliably. And moving on to grenades, there's soda cans, obviously, and they blow up, knock things around, do a bunch of damage. Nothing too crazy. They do cook while you hold them, and you do throw them farther when you hold them out for longer. And as you can see, big radius, big boom, especially when you're at the center of the explosion. And what you should be able to do, or, well, be showing off soon, is if you throw a grenade on the floor, you can use it to damage yourself and get sent flying. And that is all we have for today. So thanks for watching. Tune in the next 2-3 weeks, I don't know, whenever the next devlog assignment's due for class. And with that, goodbye. Bye-bye.